Hi, welcome to another very special episode of Careertainment. Now, technology and the digital world is disrupting practically everything around us. The way we live, the way we conduct business, almost everything. In terms of business, the digital revolution has disrupted industries, sectors, products, solutions, services, everything. In fact, many of the product categories that we saw a couple of years back or maybe a decade ago do not even exist today. And this disruption is not just restricted to sectors and industries and product categories, but also extends to the functions within an organization, the manner in which a company operates. Every function, manufacturing, production, HR, finance, marketing, each functions look so much different. It's almost unrecognizable when you compare it with what it looked like only a few years back. Of course, the most obvious and overt change seems to be on the manufacturing and the production front because you see these large machinery and equipment and robotics, etc. But even other functions are being disrupted. So, what's happening to the most visible function, marketing, and specifically Marcom? Because that's what we interact with on a day to day basis. What's happening there? MarTech, AdTech, AI, ML, these are buzzwords from campus to corporations. But what do these really mean in the practical context on ground when it comes to business and marketing and Marcom? What are leading corporations across the world who are responsible for many brands that we interact from morning till evening doing and thinking about this digital disruption? How are they maneuvering this digital landscape around them? Now, who better to talk about this, give us insights, and discuss than the guest on my show today, Mr. Rahul Velde. Now, Rahul is the EVP Digital Transformation and Digital Business of Unilever. Based at its London headquarters, Rahul leads and is responsible for the digital transformation initiatives of Unilever globally. He's a consummate marketing, media, and a Marcom professional, having operated across the world for over 3 decades. And you can just imagine the kind of insights he would have. He's one of the most senior and respected professionals in this industry and domain, and one of the most sought after speakers when it comes to his domain knowledge. He was the Mobile Marketing Association Chairman Asia and also the Regional Vice President of the World Federation of Advertisers, WFA. He's a sought after speaker at many fora and, in fact, has been invited as guest speaker several times to even the Harvard Business School. Ladies and gentlemen, it just doesn't get bigger than this to offer insights on marketing and Marcom. So, welcome to another episode of Careertainment and presenting to you Mr. Rahul Velde. Hi, Rahul. Namaskar and welcome to Careertainment.
Hey, great to see you, Vikram. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us, Rahul. Now, Careertainment is mainly targeted towards professional managers, entrepreneurs, and students, and we have a fairly active community across the country. And we offer insights on various topics concerning career, and so that these tips benefit them. So, thank you once again for joining.
Yeah, it's an privilege, Vikram, to see you here on the show. I've been following your show and spot on that you've been doing a great job bringing to life a lot of aspects related to career and professional development to all the people who watch your show. So my best wishes to you, and really terrific to see you do this.
Thank you, Rahul. Kind words. Thank you very much for appreciating. So I'll begin by as they say, a warm-up question. We get, inundated by the kind of social media infestation that's happening around us. I can barely look at my WhatsApp groups and LinkedIn. So can you tell me the life of a typical day in the life of a digital leader, a global digital leader? I mean, there must be so much of information throughput happening towards you and from you. How do you handle it? How does it look on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. So, firstly, there is an explosion of platforms, and you named a few: WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, now Clubhouse. So, the platforms continue to explode. Many of them actually are compelling, and therefore we go to them again and again, either with our families or in our professional lives. And because there is a explosion of platforms, there is also an explosion of content. And typically speaking, what's happened is that the content is now democratized, and you and I, we can produce it pretty much like this video that we are doing on Zoom. Very much that everybody is now able to actually participate in the content economy, either as a creator and of course as a consumer, because all of us are actually devouring it, time and again, and every day pretty much people spend anything like a few hours on their phone or on the computer just absorbing content. Now, all of this has got accelerated manifold during the course of the pandemic. So it was already very fast. And you can see that again, what was actually on a fast track in any case has again a round of explosion during the case of the pandemic. And therefore, that really means that as consumers, we have to be very mindful and choiceful of what we actually watch and how much time we spend doing this, because it can just suck you in. It's a rabbit hole. As professionals, we have to find a way of demystifying some of the things that are going around and actually trying to make sense through data as well as other mechanisms of what's actually happening, what is important, what's really playing. And I think the last thing, which certainly from a leadership standpoint, I often think about, where all of us need to spend time, is not only on what is happening now, but creating a point of view about the future and sort of beginning to think of where the puck is going and what's likely to happen, let's say a year later or 2 years later. So typically, you see any one of us actually either being early adopters, which means we really switch on to any new platform that is launched. And I don't know if you've seen this thing called Clubhouse yet. If not, I invite you to join it and take a look. I think you'll love it.
Yeah, sure.
But, so you're either an early adopter or you're a fast follower. And quite frankly, for most people, there is no third choice, right? So you're either meaning there is absolutely nothing. You just, within days, weeks, you follow. And that's true for all generations, by the way. Previously, these things we could say only of the sort of younger generation. Now it's all of us are other early adopters, fast followers.
But how is your typical day? I mean, I'm just intrigued at the kind of humongous data that must be flowing into you and outbound.
I think, look, a lot of it is around applying ourselves to the analytics, beginning to think of, what is actually happening, both your pulse of for today, but like I said, also postulating views about the future, meeting a number of partners, because in the digital world or in today's world, there is a large number of activity which is taking place across the entire ecosystem, and therefore pretty much one has to schedule and think about how it unfolds very, very carefully. And I like to think of it as about sort of a rule of thirds. So a third of the time is really around what's happening in the future. A third of my time is around what's happening here and now and what we should be doing and how we should be actually making sure that our brands win, our businesses are fit to win, etc. And a third of which is around really people.
Okay.
Which is a very important aspect of what we are talking about today, because both, so not just in the form of mentoring people or coaching people, but generally speaking, addressing the aspect of talent and culture is about like at least occupies a third of my mind space, if you like, if not the time.
So 3 decades, Rahul, for you in this industry in various roles across from Oceania to Europe and the Americas. The digital landscape when it comes to marketing and Marcom has completely changed. Your words on that, of course, technology, but your insight more in the context of the application of this and how that has changed the landscape.
I think so. Firstly, the majority dramatic change has taken place in an Indian context. I would say the first big change was when satellite TV actually took off. And then fast forward a few years later, we had the social media and, the takeoff of digital technology. And Facebook is about 11, 10 years old. And therefore, we've seen that dramatic shift taking place about 10 years ago, you could argue. And around the same time, you had the Beijing Olympics, and the digital revolution in China also took off. What you're seeing now is perhaps another level of change, and again, a very dramatic change, if you like, through the change in commerce, and how digital commerce is now actually taken off in the last few years. So whether it's the likes of Amazon, Flipkart, and a whole lot of other players in the Indian ecosystem have generally taken off in a big way in the last couple of years. And more recently, you will see that again, there are new sectors like education technology, financial technology. So effectively, every few years, you see that the technology is getting impacted or impacting lives in a very big way. As it impacts lives, it impacts businesses. And of course, therefore, you see that there is an entire, whether you call it evolution or revolution, except that it's happening faster now than it has happened in the past. You could probably look at 5-year intervals, 4-year intervals. Now it's pretty much every year you hear something new, and it's taking off. Yeah.
And the power of idea, does that still remain when it comes to communication and marketing, or is it all bots and chatbots and AI now?
No, I think it definitely, technology is playing a very big role in communication and marketing. And that's playing a role at 3 levels. One is in terms of mining insights and our ability to understand consumers and what they do, how this is. Absolutely no question that technology is actually making it faster, better, etc. The second place where technology is enabling marketing communications is the area of actually being able to communicate and engage people, being able to just distribute your message much more widely, much faster, and so on. And the third is, which has been actually one of the biggest challenges in marketing and advertising, which is the ability to measure what is going on. So that's again, aided by technology and significantly better now. Having said all this, to your question of is the power of idea important? No question that it is at the end of the day an idea. It is about how we are communicating in popular culture, how we are able to actually make sure that we are connecting with the audiences, whoever they might be. And therefore, the creative quotient it remains just as important. The human touch remains just as important, because finally, at the end of the day, the consumers, the people who consume products, watch advertising, are all humans. And therefore, the emotive part remains just as important, except that we are able to measure and decode some of this much faster and much more powerfully.
That's very interesting, which brings me to the next question. What about these tools? What are these some of the most important technology tools when it comes to measurement, in terms of deployment, in terms of content creation? What are some of the tools, or how does one get to know, especially a lot of people who want to upgrade themselves, middle management, marketing professionals, or even students? Where is the library of tools? Because academia is also a little restricted at this point of time. How do they access knowledge for all these tools of martech and ad tech and measurements, etc.? How do they access it?
Yeah, I think there are 2 questions in what you just talked about. One is, what are the tools? Where do they actually lie? And the second is that for students, for managers, how do you actually access them? How do you get around? Right. I think the first part is there is a plethora of tools, and when I say plethora, I'm talking of thousands of tools and technologies are already in the market and are launched every year, right? So just about anything that you and I can think of, there is some analytical tool or some data related tool that exists out there. Therefore, it is like trying to find sort of a needle in a haystack, in a manner of speaking, if you actually try to say that this is the problem I want to solve, and how do I go around doing it. That said, therefore, in order to make sure that you're using the right tools, depending on the size and scale of your business, there are a large number of intermediary players who try and make sense of all this, right? Whether you call them consultants, data analytics companies, agencies, etc. So I think it's not that challenging for anyone to actually figure out what are the tools out there. Now, the beauty is that in the previous world, if you remember, we used to have information technology, or IT as it used to be called, or hardware, like a big capex item. There were really big discussions in small companies or big companies. How much do we want to invest? Now, the beauty of today's landscape is that most of the tools, most of them, if not all, are actually on a consumption basis, pay as you go basis, which really means that for any business to enter and to begin to play around with some of these things is not that expensive. It's an OPEX item for sure, but not as expensive. Huge, lowering of the barriers to entry, if you like. Then the second question, Vikram, that you asked is a very important one. Actually, the more profound question is that, which is, how do I make sure as a professional or as a student that I am tooling myself right?
Correct.
And I often give this analogy of the gym, right? And if I said to you or to anybody, look, what do you need to do fit? Apart from healthy eating, you would say that you need to go to the gym every day, or you need to go for a run or some kind of a physical exercise. And I say this to all young professionals, myself included, and all professionals actually. One question we need to ask ourselves on a daily basis is, what's your digital gym? What are you doing every day?
Okay.
Every day, spending your 15-30 minutes, whatever time you can allot, and you should allot that kind of time to just be fit for today's professional world and tomorrow's. So the digital gym equivalent for me is whether you're surfing through Twitter, whether you're looking through newsletters, watching videos, playing around with tools, doing whatever it is, but 30 minutes every day on your digital gym, 3 hours of a burst exercise every once a week, a few hours every month, but really constructing your own learning map and saying and dedicating yourself to it. And actually, quite frankly, it is fun. In my experience, most people who have taken this on find themselves, they commit to 30 minutes and they end up spending 45, because it's so interesting or it's applicable to business. Somebody who spends 45 says, hey man, sorry, you didn't have to get me into this because now I'm spending an hour. So I feel that the learning, the ability to learn is not just an ability to learn, but it's also a commitment to learn. So if you commit yourself to learning and saying, hey, I want to be fit for today, fit for tomorrow, you will easily see that you can embrace all this. And then the tools and everything else comes your way. There isn't a senior manager in the world who doesn't get cold emails from some supplier, wanting to sell something with related to technology. All you got to do is give him a meeting or just read through the deck or the email or the video that he or she sends. And then that begins to open your mind. So I think the learning quotient is a very important part of how you step it up.
I think I won't call that an insight, Rahul. That's phenomenal advice. Quite honestly, people are, and that's an advice to do with discipline, I guess, because if you follow that discipline, there's so much available. And then it's, of course, left to you. And in this open source world, everything is around you. A little on the consumer side, since we were talking about the consumption, some interesting trends on how consumers are consuming data nowadays.
Yeah, I think consumers are consuming more content. I think the play over there is more about how they are consuming content or engaging with brands or what they're doing. And I think there are 2-3 trends over there which come to my mind. One is this idea, which is paradoxical, of a lot of short form content getting consumed. 30-second, 15-second TikTok videos, whatever you want to call it, all of that. Like it's, millions and millions of hours are being consumed doing that. And then on the flip side, you also have really good quality long form content, long series, or multiple episodes of a series, shows, etc., whether it's on Netflix or any of the other platforms, right? So you've got this paradoxical situation where you're snacking a lot and you're binging a lot, right? And you're doing both at the same time, and very often it's the same consumer, which is either you or me. Super interesting, I think, paradox. In the same way, I think if you see from a content consumption perspective, your TVs are getting better, they're getting more sophisticated. You've got practically, depending on what you can afford, you're having all these fancy TVs at home, or big screens for sure. And then you're watching a lot of content on your mobile, right? Pretty much our show will be watched on mobile by many people, arguably, right? So again, a very interesting sort of dynamic. So the key thing over here is that it is just like everywhere, and it's there all the time, and people are just sort of letting it come in a very, very big way. And therefore it becomes important for all players, business players, to begin to actually take part in that game which is going around, right? And there are many levels. Advertising is but obvious, the most simplistic one, but other than advertising, there are many ways in which brands begin to participate in that sort of cultural movement. Now, all of this is also on the net, and therefore is creating vast amounts of data. vast amounts of data which provides insights, which provides measurement, like how many people are watching a video, what level are they, is the engagement, when do they drop off, what do they really like, when do they light up, all sorts of things. So I think, conventionally we've always had this magic in communication which was at a high level, but what's happened now is that the science is really actually become more and more important, and therefore the overall level is higher. Now, all that said, you also see a lot of average stuff all the time, right? I wonder, like, who's producing it? Right?
Yeah.
So, because anybody can produce and anybody can distribute, and therefore, I wouldn't say that everything that is produced is great, nor would I say that everything that is produced is not great. So, now we have to make, as professionals, as marketing professionals, as media professionals, as a digital professional, we have to make sense of all this, right? And therefore, apart from having data and analytics, we also need to create that worldview of what's really going on. So I think these are very, very interesting times to be in marketing. Perhaps, and this gets said every few years actually, that this is the best time to be in marketing. It's the best time to be in marketing. And that holds true even today.
How do digital leaders like you track this over intrusive format of the various platforms that we are inundated with? I mean, how do you, even at a practical level, how do you guys even, do you ignore some platforms? Or
I don't think ignore would be the right word, because you can ignore anything that's happening around the world at your own peril. So I don't think as a professional you should ignore anything that's happening around you, however big or small, because some of the small things become big and they get bigger. So when you think of resource allocation, whether it is time, people, money, you have to look at really what's already on the taken off and is in flight and super popular or actually very big. There are quite a few things which you have to see as wanting to run on the runway or keen to take off. And then on the other hand, there are things which you have to watch very closely, which are very early, right? And then begin to postulate hypotheses of how it might play out, how we could play a role, right? So let's practically speaking, let's take an example. If you think Facebook and Instagram, they're very much now big, giant, mass people are using it. So the question of sort of participating or not doesn't arise. You absolutely have to be a part of it. There are a few others which might be new, which was what TikTok was a couple of years ago, but TikTok is mainstream today. So you have to, and it happened literally within 2-3 years, maybe, right? And then on the third extreme, perhaps something which is really new, few weeks or months old, is something like Clubhouse, not yet commercialized, but very engaging, getting people. And how do you then begin to participate? So you have to have this sort of, bird's eye view of everything that's going around. The important question is like this, Vikram, that you have to, all professionals have to have a microscopic lens on a few things, right? And a zoom lens on some other things. Certainly, so leadership is about having the right level of zoom. And if you kind of get involved, too caught up in the details and very nitty-gritty when it's not appropriate, or you do it the other way around, which is that you're just sort of flying at a very high altitude but not knowing the details, then I feel there is a problem. So I think the leadership challenge is really being able to have that perspective, where you can sort of zoom in and zoom out at will and have the bandwidth to be able to do that rather than get caught up. Because if you get caught up, there is no end. You destroy your life by just getting caught up in any kind of detail, whether it's data, information, or what's going on. It's just absolutely insane level of complexity as well as speed which is there.
You already said that the power of idea is not dead, thankfully. What about content? I mean, is it still the king?
Oh, that's a great question, because there are so many buzz phrases which do around, right? So I'll give you one. So content is king, distribution is queen, and data is prince. And then something is something, right? But it is the combination. There is no such thing as only one thing rules and the others don't matter. Or so I feel like very often we are tempted to simplify. And we are tempted to think of, hey, content is king and nothing else matters, or distribution is king and nothing. It's not that. It is all of that together, which actually creates a full movement or a momentum, and then that becomes unstoppable. So I feel it's a combination. Certainly, the big variable in this, vis-a-vis, if you were to go back a few years, is the area of technology and data. That's a game changer. content was always king, remains. Distribution was always queen, remains. Now you've got this new thing which you can do, which is around technology and data.
I mean, whatever spends you do or whatever idea that you put forward, whether it's measurable or not, has it become more empirical now?
I think it's become more easy to measure, particularly when it links to commerce, when it links to immediacy of a transaction. So if you think of it, for example, in the context of, let's say, stuff that people buy off the net, then it's much, much easier to measure, no question. And that could be whether you buy a travel ticket or you buy any consumer good or whatever appliance, everything, right? So even for that matter, even in the context of cars, you could say I spent so much and got so many leads, or so many people to take a test drive, etc. So the measurement science on what is popularly known as performance marketing, or where actions are directly relevant, no question, big step change, easy to measure, and actually is being done very well. Then there is also the other aspect, which is of longevity, the real value which a brand creates in the consumer's mind, which stays for a long period of time, and is the core of the brand, etc. I think that remains measured in much more sophisticated ways than before, but is longer term, because it's not linear. You can't associate straightway an input output ratio like you can do in performance marketing. So in summary, really, on this point, think of it like the science of measurement has been elevated big time, right? So if you were to take a marketing course today, I think measurement science has to be an integral part of that marketing course. If you're an early practitioner of marketing, that has to be an integral part of what you do, and so on, right? So, yeah.
So when it comes to performance marketing, of course, Airbnb has kind of put a bee in the bonnet of everybody's marketing cap right now, right? Last week. But is there anything called as above the line or below the line now?
I don't know. I mean, that distinction no longer gets talked about in the same fashion that it was several years ago.
Yes.
But that said, the resource allocation or investment allocation remains important. How much do you do and what? Let's not forget that the traditional trade, or for that matter, e-commerce, and what you can say as trade marketing spend. So, depending on which industry it is, all the variables remain important, except that the number of channels and possibilities are much more.
Okay.
And that means that the resource allocation decisions have to be more science driven. Right? So if you're a student, or a practitioner, early stage of your career, there are jobs and roles now which didn't exist before, right? So if you are having somebody who's taking up education in college or going into post graduation, starting work, there are any number of jobs which didn't exist. And by the way, there'll be any number of jobs coming up in the future which we don't know about today. Super exciting.
Okay. So, Rahul, we've heard stories of what Microsoft is doing with, let's say, IKEA, or even with Starbucks and Starbucks Blue. Some interesting anecdotes or some experiences that you have seen which are absolutely transformational.
Yeah, I think definitely there are, all the names that you quoted are, big winners. You earlier mentioned Airbnb, and you can easily think of how it transformed the hospitality industry in a very big way. Closer to home in India, the transformation that Oyo Rooms brought about in the hospitality industry, it's sort of somewhere between an Airbnb and a traditional, big chain hotels. And you've got like this multi-billion-dollar enterprise brilliantly created because of technology, great leadership, great foresight, but execution as well. Similarly, you could talk of any place which is travel related, and you can never talk about it without mentioning either a booking.com, expedia.com, or Uber, or something of that kind. All of which, if you think of it, the single thing which has changed it is technology, and how it's so. There are two aspects, Vikram, I feel. The one is transforming industries, right? And on one hand, if you say, for example, the VHS tape going away and the DVD going away and all of that, so industries have got transformed. We talked about Uber, Airbnb, those kind of examples. And then communication and engagement. And in the consumer goods space, a lot of exciting things happening. Great companies, of course, are at Unilever. We've got some brands which do great work, whether it is Dove, whether it is Axe, whether it is Magnum, several of our brands actually. And obviously, that's super important for us to engage with consumers and do really cool stuff. But equally, I think the big change that is taking place is in the area of commerce. and how you are on, I don't want to use the word enticed, but how you are invited to participate in that with intention and without both. There isn't a day, certainly I can speak for our household and many other households, where there isn't a day when an e-commerce package doesn't arrive, right? It just arrives out of nowhere. You either intended to buy it or how did that happen now? That's because marketers have provided stimulus to you in the form of your Facebook feed, in the form of something which has actually got you to buy and made it frictionless, so you end up buying. And this I could say, like, so many examples we could talk about. I've not been in India for a while, but it strikes me that this is happening with my mom's house in Pune, just as frequently, right? So she's now ordering every other day, every other week, something is coming. And there is a very interesting phenomena that I see, which is like this. And I don't know, I'd love to hear whether you connect with this or not. So previously what used to happen is we would get onto MG Road or some street, and there would be a little bit of window shopping you would end up doing, right? It was sort of your walk in the on the high street and looking at windows and occasionally then buying something because you were out there. Now that window shopping experience has transferred online, as far as I see it, where people are surfing online, not necessarily with an intention to buy, and playing around because they've been invited into the store through some advertising, the online stores. And then because they're there, they end up buying something. This is happening with me very often, by the way. And I see it happening when I talk to people. I see the window shopping experience. It's unreal. It's human truth that we love, to the exploration. And we can't go to stores because of the pandemic, but even without that. So now it's on your net. Now today you'll finish my call. Somebody gives you some message and you'll try to look at it. It could be tickets, it could be anything. So we always over-index on advertising, content, entertainment. Absolutely true. Think about window shopping. I can guarantee you that if it is measured, it will run into, several minutes to an hour a day, especially and again, it varies by audiences and who does it. But to my mind, what happens in one cross section doesn't matter because it's typically happening across. Now, guess what? If this were to be true, and I strongly believe it is, if you're a platform like Facebook, if you're a platform like Google, if you're a platform like Instagram, what do you want to do? You want to participate in this commerce. So for all companies, commerce is a big deal, right? It's not just advertising and communication and hey, data. No, it is actually converting that into sales and invite. And therefore, you sort of have the pass through of the real dollars or rupees, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Phenomenal observation. Rahul, I want to pick at your brains for only two more questions, and then I will close out on that. One is that, you are not just responsible for digital transformation, but even digital business. So I can pick your brains even on how the digital revolution is impacting even people and processes, because we've kind of given an undue share of this program towards marketing. But I'm certain a lot would be happening on the people processes domain and even operating processes, right? What is happening there?
So I think technology is transforming business end to end. Like we were speaking today at length about the marketing aspect of it, but you are absolutely right. It is actually starting from right from procurement down to distribution, delivery, consumption, measurement. All of those are getting digitized aggressively across industries. And therefore, it becomes important to make the right choices in the overall scheme of digital transformation, where the impact is highest, where the returns are good, where it can be done. So there are many different frameworks which one needs to apply to see what we do in digital transformation. It's the simplest way I see it, Vikram, is all transformation is a function, particularly in this case, a function of like a visualize a triangle. You've got technology on one side, very important, to embrace new technology and put it into the business. You've got processes on the other side, which have to keep pace with the technology change, right? And therefore, the rewiring of processes, the reframing of all the touch points, which is a classic sort of job to be done. And if that's not in sync, then you have a problem.
Right.
Third and very important piece of the triangle is people, talent, and culture. Because you can have a great car or a great technology and change some of the processes. But if you don't have culture and people which embrace that change, starting with leadership, by the way, then, the whole triangle is not in sync. And I often say that it is better to have all these three lifting itself at 75% and therefore, in balance and in tandem, rather
Yeah.
than over index on one and buy great technology. You're an entrepreneur, a founder, or a leader of a business, spend millions of dollars on technology, but processes don't change or people don't change. You crib about the technology,
Yeah.
right? Whereas actually, so this understanding of this, and it could be even 60%, if not 75, but always move that whole disk together. If you were to visualize it, that triangle is very important. And where you apply that, of course, the most visible aspect is in marketing, which is what we've been discussing. But in the back end, there is a lot which is taking place. I mean, there's a
And
tremendous.
and a lot of job and business opportunities for people, especially a lot of middle management people kind of getting scared nowadays, saying that, hey, we've joined around 20 years back or 15 years back, and things are really changing fast. Any advice for those guys, and including students who are kind of coming in? What do they do?
Yeah, I think the students have a super exciting time. There is absolutely, so I can't see how they should ever feel like, oh, what is the challenge? It's excitement, actually.
Mm.
Everything is a greenfield runway, and depending on the choices they make, it's game
Yeah.
on and it'll be amazing. I
Yeah.
think there is a sandwich generation. That's my
Mhm.
observation. The
Yes,
sandwich
yes.
generation is kind of not there, and not very old either, or not very see. And there, this retooling becomes very important. The choices you make in your career, often I think it will be perhaps wise for many people to take a step back, to take many steps forward, or to move sideways to go forward, to embrace some of these new things. And you will see that a lot of people are reinventing themselves, joining new sectors, taking on new skills, right? So I feel, for them, the challenge is there, but the excitement is much more. I don't think that there is anything to be threatened by, right?
Okay.
But so I don't see it, because overall, in totality, if you see, let's take an example. If you're a part of a courier industry and you are a specialist in old school couriers, no problem. Today, guess what's happening to that industry? It's exploding. So therefore, how are you going to play as a professional, leave alone as a company? I think most industries, there are very, very few which you could say are, really not so. Skills are relevant. I feel it's about reframing the opportunity, and rather than get intimidated by the challenge, you start practicing the digital gym. I promise you that all the people who you talked about, who are feeling overawed, will actually gain confidence. It's just the same idea of fitness, right? They'll just feel, yeah, it's, I can talk to Vikram, I can talk to my son, somebody else, in a much more engaged and an informed manner, and that then begins to build confidence.
I think that digital gym is a phenomenal advice, Rahul. I think you take a patent for that. Okay, I'm closing out by your thoughts on India. We are very positive on the digital transformation in India, either because of the government or whatever. What's your take on it, about India specifically?
Yeah, I think, so. Firstly, super exciting. It's much more than one factor or one element like the government or policies. It is the enterprise behavior, a young generation, highly skilled, core analytical skills taught into early part of the education. Certainly, a lot of role models which are getting created. You mentioned Sabir Bhatia earlier, which was a role model when we were growing up, or when he was getting out of college. And there are any number of people now who people look up to, right? Satya Nadella, Sundar Pichai, coming from Indian ethos. So I feel that it's a combination of factors, a great time. You already see that energy in the startup ecosystem. You're in Bangalore. Bangalore is the heartbeat of sort of everything that's happening in the ecosystem on technologies, perhaps in Bangalore. And all of this, I would frame it as, it's not a question of others are falling behind and what's happening on the other countries and all that. That's not the challenge or the question to answer or even look at. It doesn't matter, because there's so much going on, and India is such a large market. So the question is, what can we do to transform India? Whether you're a startup or a big company, and that is big enough. Which is how typically also, if you see, the companies in China applied themselves, the tech companies. They said, look, this is big enough. This is massive. It's going to consume all our energy and all our resources. So why get distracted? So and you see what they've done in the last 5-10 years is dramatic. So we should do that in India, where we look at what's happening, transform that, and that will consume us, keep us super busy.
How do you think these global platforms vis-a-vis regional platforms will work? Is there any future for these, Me Too, regional, semi-regional kind of business ideas?
I think this comes down to what is your differentiating proposition, and assuming that it is differentiating and it solves real problems of real people. I think you are in a very good place. If it's not differentiated and it is actually just emulating or copying somebody else, then are you able to execute it better? What's the reason, right? So at the end of the day, all
No, a
these
Twitter and a coup, for example. A
but they're
coup and a
solving.
Twitter.
Yeah, I think it's about solving real problems of real people, and if you do it better than anybody else, you grow. That's the truth of business. So I think the regional, local, global, this becomes relevant later. Now, particularly, but having said that, technology travels. Technology loves scale. Technology in digital, there is a merit in having very strong sort of core and foundation. So it is not easy to compete, I would say, and therefore it really comes down to what's the differentiator. If you this is often said by all the people in the technology industry, and every time a new platform comes, you have one of the big companies saying, hey, why did we not think of it before, right? Now we mentioned Clubhouse 2-3 times because the recent kid on the block, and everybody's going, hey, where did that come from? And everybody's saying, hey, why did we not do it? Right? When Instagram happened, everybody said, and the big company said, why did we not do it? Now this, will it come from India? Will it come from China? Will it come from Singapore? Will it come from UK? This is about imagination, solving problems, finding, I won't call them, finding spaces which are of interest to people and then getting into them, executing brilliantly. Let's give credit to the execution. A lot of the companies we spoke about, guess what? They're not just great ideas, but they executed brilliantly, right?
Okay. Rahul, thank you so much for your time. This was not just insightful, it was advisory, insights, everything packaged into one. I'm sure a lot of people are going to appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Enjoyed the chat, Vikram. Thank you, and all the best to you for continuing this journey of helping students, managers, professionals to just look at new things. So, great chatting with you.
That was a chat with Rahul Velde. I'm sure it was more insightful than anything that you've seen before. Thank you for locking on to Careertainment, subscribing and sharing the channel. See you again on another episode next time. Bye for now.